Hello and welcome to Living and Learning. I'm Allison Kinnear, and every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I jump onto Facebook Live and do a little talk about living and learning. Today, I was inspired by a friend of mine named Libby, who asked a really powerful, potent, important question, which was this. What advice do you have when someone just doesn't like you? How do I get rid of this relentless need to be liked? I'm going to read that again. What advice do you have when someone just doesn't like you? And how do I get rid of this relentless need to be liked? I love this question. I think it's just so powerful and so potent because it's something that we wrestle with, whether we admit it or not, on a regular basis. I know, at least I will speak for myself and say, I have wrestled with this a lot in my life. And I asked Libby if I could talk about it on Living and Learning, and she said yes. And in fact, when I was thinking about it and thinking about all the things that I wanted to say, it is way too big for one video. Chances are I am going to be riffing on wanting to be liked for the rest of November. But let's dive in a little bit into this. And welcome Suparna, welcome Abby, welcome Allie. Thanks for hopping on and being here live. So the first thing, I love this question of like, this is a relentless need. Like, what do I do with this relentless need to be liked? And I think one of the things one of the reasons why it is so relentless is because it is actually hardwired into our DNA. It is hardwired into us as humans. We are hardwired for connection. That is something that is primal in us. It's in the back of our brain. It is something that drives and motivates so much of our behavior is connection, needing to be connected. One of our biggest traumas or fears is to be disconnected, to be outed by a community, to be ousted from it. So this is a primal drive in us, is to be connected. And for those people who say, oh, I don't care what people say, I don't care if people like me or not, that is, in all honesty, my guess is a lot of bravado. And perhaps we don't care what people who are far away from us, who are at a distance from us, whether they like us or not. But the people that we bring into our inner circle, the people who we are deeply and more intimately connected with, we have a deeper investment around our connection with them. So sometimes we might tell ourselves, oh, it doesn't matter if people like me or not. But I would argue that it does show up in us, that there is a tightness in your stomach or a flutter in your heart or some fear around people not liking you for whatever reason, whether it's someone you're really intimate with, or sometimes it can be the masses. And so I guess just to say that, to normalize it, that the reason why we might have this relentless, and we might articulate that we have this relentless need to be liked, it is because we are hardwired for connection. And welcome Vita, welcome Shara, welcome Isabella. Thank you all for being here. So that's number one. We are hardwired for connection. That's why it's so important to us. Number two, when people have expressed to us that they do not like us, or they no longer want us in their circle. I think, and I just was talking about this in my Boundaries for the Holidays. I just made a video called Forgiveness, the Other F Word, because I think it is an opportunity for us to step into our forgiveness. And what I mean by forgiveness is the radical acceptance of what is, the radical acceptance of that sentence, the radical acceptance of somebody saying that they don't like you, and the radical acceptance of what that means for us and ourselves, how we can demonstrate some self-forgiveness and perhaps some forgiveness of the other person. Not to condone behavior, not to accept it in by saying it's okay, not that kind of accepting, but more accepting in this is what is. Somebody's expressing a feeling that is counter to my feeling, and a lot of fear and perhaps shame comes up through that recognition. And I love this quote. I put it too far out of reach, from Rising Strong, about forgiveness. And I just want to read it to you because I think it is such a powerful testament around what is forgiveness. And the quote is this: in order for forgiveness to happen, something has to die. If you make a choice to forgive, you have to face into the pain. You simply have to hurt. That is why forgiveness is so hard, is because it actually requires us to face into the pain, to face into the hurt, and to allow this concept of allowing something to die and inviting that grief in. That is the work of forgiveness. And that grief might be a belief about what your relationship was like. It might be a grief around your belief around what being liked means to you, and how it has kept you safe. It could be a multitude of things, but to really identify that there is something that needs to die, and perhaps it's just the fantasy of what you thought your relationship was like versus the reality of what is. And how can we grieve that, not only for the other person, but maybe we have grief that we need to name around what actions we did that maybe fed into somebody saying that they don't like us or no longer want to be in a relationship with us. So I think that's another part of it. And again, there's so many more things that I want to say about this, and I will get to them in other videos. But I think part of what comes up for me, and when I think about this radical acceptance of what is, and that something needs to die, and oftentimes it's a belief or a fantasy or an idea, or perhaps the relationship as well, and we invite that grief in. The other part of it is not only to allow ourselves to have our feelings, but that we have to allow other people to have their feelings. We have to allow other people to have their opinions. We have to allow other people to have their perspectives. And what can be really difficult is that when we're feeling misunderstood, or their perception of us is not in alignment with our perception of us, and something's feeling unfinished, unconnected, misunderstood, it's hard to kind of allow that messiness to be there. We tend to want to clean it up. We want it to be like, no, let's get on the same page then. Let's get to agree to disagree. Let's get to see things from a consistent point of view where everything is more in alignment and in integrity. But sometimes that option isn't afforded to us. Sometimes those misunderstandings or those misperceptions are left unfinished. And we then have an opportunity to allow that, to forgive that, to grieve that, not only for ourselves, but for the other person, for the whole situation. But it's this allowing other people to have their feelings, to have their perspective, to have their opinions, even if it's not in alignment with ours. And I can tell you, when I allow other people, especially people that I love and care about, to have feelings that are uncomfortable, that are, maybe have anger or frustration directed toward me, it can feel almost physically excruciating to just allow them to be with their feelings. We tend to want to take those feelings on for them, or to alleviate that suffering for them, when really the biggest gift that we can do is allow them to be in their feelings and allow ourselves to be in our feelings. because sometimes we want to step in and alleviate that suffering from the other person because we want things to be back to being safe, or we want to distract ourselves from feeling into some of the painful emotions that we might be feeling as well. So this is, to me, these are some of the first thoughts. There is so much more to be talked about with wanting to be liked. But I invite you to just consider we are hardwired for this. It's why it's so important. And people who say that they don't care about what other people think, they are either psychopaths or they are bluffing, because we are hardwired for it, unless there is something seriously wrong with our brain chemistry, which makes us incapable of empathy. So that's number one. If you have a constant fear of being liked, just know that's hardwired in us. Two, if people don't like us, then there is that radical acceptance of what is, not only for ourselves, but for the other person, and to step into the grief that comes with that, the grief of that loss of an idea of a friendship, of that loss of an idea of a relationship, whatever that loss might be, to tap into that grief. And finally, to just allow the other person to have their feelings, to allow yourself to have yours. And I already want to talk about how we can tap into our inner resourcefulness and how we can find our worthiness in the midst of not wanting to be liked. But I think that's a longer topic for another talk. So I'll talk about that on the next time. But with that, Allie, you're welcome. I'm glad this came at a good time for you. This is something that I think we all are in constant need to, we're consistently wrestling with, especially those of us who really possess a disease to please. It can be an issue that really pops up for us in an intense way. And I want to thank Libby for posing this question, not to me exactly, but to her Facebook world that I am blessed to be a part of. We are almost finished with this first round of Boundaries for the Holidays, and there is a new round that's going to be starting up right after Thanksgiving. I cannot tell you how amazing this class is and the results that the people who are participating, these clients, are already getting. The videos that are there, they can watch them again and again and again. I go into way more depth than I can do on Facebook Live. So if you're interested in that, just stay tuned. I'll be sending more information as we get closer to the Thanksgiving holiday, so you can jump in on some of this amazing content that can be a real game changer in life. Anyway, I wish you a full week of living and learning. I will see you next week for more talking about wanting to be liked. See you then.